but I'm sure you will as we go. So what I finally did was, Zillow, I'm assuming, is a complete database of all homes. So what I did in the previous two was I created a bit of a fabrication in that I had all the homes in the database. In other words, I had census, and then I went in and randomly sampled from that census. Nobody in their right mind would actually do that, of course. If you had all the data, you would use all the data. But I was trying to prove a point to illustrate the variability. So what I did then was I went into Zillow and I said, okay, in Oregon, there, at that moment in December 2013, there were 20,533 sales of foreclosure homes. That's what Zillow told me. At that day I checked in Oregon overall. Fair enough? And I'm assuming that's a census. I'm assuming they've got their networks out, they're collecting all this data. And if it's not a census, it's close enough to a census to pretend it is a census. Fair? Fairish. Of those, 1,992 are in foreclosure. How does that compare to Ben's foreclosure rate? And I'm talking about whether December 2013, April 2013, January 2010. How does it compare? We'll look at each of the years. Now, I put in there not a sample, because that's not a sample anymore, is it? Which means, if it's not a sample, what doesn't it need?
Margin of error.
You don't put a margin of error on a parametric study. Which means, Carly, what you did back in the day with the first example, when you took whatever it was, 72 or 65 out of my 702, and stopped there, you can stop there with this, because that's all the data. There is no other data to include in the sample because that's everything. Which means you're the U.S. Census Bureau. Actually, the Oregon Census Bureau right now. So all you're going to do is you're going to divide 1,992 by 20,533. And what do you get? Let's swing this over here. I do want to add it to the number line for sure. I think it's important to compare. What do you guys get? And I'm going to add a few more things. This is green. This was P hat was about 9.4%. The first one was P hat was about 9.3%, if I remember correctly. The blue one, which is in my pocket, this was P hat is about 7.4%. What did you guys just get as a percentage?
9.7.
Say it again. 9.7%. Boom, end of story. No plus or minus, correct? At that moment, when I took that data, it was 9.7%. And that was what it was for the state of Oregon. So 9.7%. 9, 10, 9.7 is about here, yes? Can I take this 8.9 off? Is that okay? I worry it's going to get confusing. Take all these off, actually. So here is about 9.7%. I'm using it in orange. This is December 2013 for all of Oregon. What should I label that? Should I call it P hat? Should I call it P hat? P. I should just call it P. Because it's a what? It's a population parameter. There's no margin of error on it. Boom! It's P. It's little p. It's little p. It's not P hat. It's little p. Which means there's no question about its value. That's its value. The reason you have margins of error is because there's always a question of the sampling deviations that you're going to get. They can be up or down from what you get. They should be close, but they are not certain. But when you've counted every house, you are certain. When you've actually counted every single house and checked the foreclosure ratings, there is no uncertainty. Does that make sense? It's like trying to figure out the average age of a COCC student. Asking you guys and forming a confidence interval around your guys' ages, which would be dumb, because you guys are not a representative sample of COCC students. That'd be a dumb thing to do. But it would be, right? There might be a bias in there, unintentional or intentional. I mean, well, hey, it's a convenience sample. If you happen to be here in front of me, convenient. But if I really wanted to know the average age of a COCC student, I go to Boyle, poach Banner, and pull your ages out of the network, which you all have put into it when you applied here. That's one way to find out what it is. That's a census. There's no uncertainty. I now know what the average age is. Fair enough? I don't know where you live on average, on mode, I guess. But here, all of these guys have uncertainty because we drew a sample. So you have to put the uncertainty bars on those samples. There's no uncertainty with that number at that moment in time, December 2013, because I had everything in front of me. So can we make any claims about any of the previous unemployment rates compared to Oregon in December 2013? Gesundheit, whoever that was, I heard a sneeze. Mikey, Gesundheit.
Houses or unemployment?
Did I say unemployment?
Yeah.
I meant foreclosures. I'm sorry. Whatever I'm talking about right here. Now I get so excited about these numbers. Can we make any claims of deviation between, say, the 9.7 foreclosure rate here versus the 2010 foreclosure rate here? We can't make any claim, can we? We can't say it's changed at all because there's uncertainty down here. It may have actually been higher than 9.7% and now it's fallen. And we're comparing Oregon to Bend, of course. It might be lower. It might have been lower in 2010 than the state of Oregon. So we can't say anything about this versus this. How about in April 2013? Can we make any claims there? None. Can we make any claims here? Hot damn, there's a claim worth making. Because we know at most, based on our sample we took in Bend in December 2013, the highest the foreclosure rate was, I believe it was 8.9%, is that right? I'm going to put it back in now. 8.9%, right? At the highest, it was 8.9% based on our 95. I'm only 95% confident of this, correct? Carly, if you were designing the study, you would go with what confidence? You would go with 99, wouldn't you? What effect would that have on the interval? Would it make it wider or smaller?
Wider.
Oh, dissension. I heard wider, 2 widers and 2 smallers.
It'd be wider because you're covering more of an area.
Good. You have to remember what adjust. Thank you, Austin. That was perfectly said. You have to remember what confidence is adjusting. What you're adjusting is the multiplier. Looking back at the spreadsheet or looking back at the PowerPoint. Let me back up a little bit here. You're adjusting the multiplier that's right here. Damn it! I know I saved that before I left. You're adjusting this multiplier right here. Higher confidence, higher number. Multiplying this makes this bigger, which means it's going to spread out more. So if you went with 99% confidence, it would actually push that interval wider. And it might actually swallow up the 9 point, whatever that is, 9.7 at that point. We can go back and check if you want. But what I want to do right now is just come back to this. At 95% confidence, we now have what's called a minimum measurable difference. That's what MMD stands for, friends. A minimum measurable difference. What is the minimum measurable difference in foreclosure rates between Bend in December 2013 and the state of Oregon in December 2013? What's the minimum measurable percentage difference? Yes. Minus the 8.9? Yes? It's this distance right here. That's the minimum difference. So that's what, 0.8%?
Yes.
There you go. You only have the minimum measurable difference there. The only one that exists is between this and this because there are no differences here, necessarily. It's in the interval, therefore you can't make a claim about it. Which means that this one actually does have a minimum. The first M stands for minimum. Could it be greater than 0.8%? Yes, but minimally it's 0.8%. So your MMD, minimum measurable difference is the 9.7% minus the 8.9%, which is 0.8 percentage points, which some folks would argue is not practically significant. And I'm not going to have that argument because it might not be. It's statistically significant. we're going to keep talking in this class about statistical significance versus practical significance. I'm going to plant that seed right now. In order to have practical significance, you have to have expert knowledge on a subject. I am not an expert in the field of Gesundheit. I am not an expert in the field of real estate sales by any stretch of the imagination. I'm pretty damn good at statistics, pretty damn good at crunching data. So I can look at that and say, yep, there's a minimal difference of 0.8%. I can't discuss if that actually means anything in the market. That might not be worth talking about. Maybe real estate says, no, if it's less than 1% difference, it's not worth talking about. Okay, but statistically it is Gesundheit. But statistically it is. No. Go ahead.
Why would we use December of 13s and we would?
Why wouldn't we use December 13s? Where? Here?
Because you're saying
Here or here?
we couldn't compare.
Oh, that's not a stupid question at all. It actually re-answers Alan's question. You see, Alan, see how this ties to your question from 10 minutes ago? So, here, this doesn't touch this interval. That means they're different.
Oh, okay.
But it does touch these guys, which means they're not different. Is that fair?
Yes.
Yeah, that's not, please don't ever think that's a stupid question. It's a great question. Carly?
So for the first part of this question then, are we, when it's saying how do the rates compare to Ben's, are we using the same December?
That's the only one that's different, right? So that's the only one I can compare to then. The other two I can't compare because they're inconclusive.
Okay.
So that's why I apologize for the typo. The whole point was that I was like, oh, this is great, and then for whatever reason I copied and pasted it wrong in your quiz. So, my
So
bad.
just say it's less then?
Yeah, we can say that Ben is at least 0.8 percentage points below the state.
Okay.
At least, that's what the minimum measurable limit, the MMD, is a statistical term. But now conversationally, talking to your neighbor, you can say there's at least a 0.8 percentage point difference between Ben and the state of Oregon. Your neighbor might say, dude, give me a beer, I don't care. That's fine. But at least you can talk intelligently about the headlines now. You could also talk intelligently a year before or 2 years before when they show you the drop in foreclosure rates, and you can explain to them that there is no real drop in foreclosure rates because the margins of error eat up the differences. That's something else you can do. Honestly, that's going to be talked about more intelligently in your labs. Because most of the time, well, let me show you real quick. I wanted to show this before the break. Did you see what I put down here at the bottom of the PowerPoint? I said statistics require MOEs, margins of error, but parameters stand alone. Does that make sense to you? Hopefully it does.